Hello, Shuny.
Hello, James. Hey,
It's not looking good here, young man.
in your country or on the planet in general?
Well, in general, everywhere, but looks like we're gonna.
JADE, HELM, martial law.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's fooled by what's going on. I was talking to someone today, had their misgivings about it, and I said, look, they say they only have 1,200 men for the United States, which would be no threat, but they're bringing an asset for thousands of men. And they've got these bases all over the place that they can call on standing forces that may not be accounted for whatsoever. They can always say, well, we were fired upon or some bullshit, which they'll provoke. Because most of these people that are with it, that know a fucking thing about what's going on, know that once they put their hands on you to take you off, you're dead. And so if it comes down to dying standing up fighting and being treated like a dog shot in a ditch in the back of the head, well, I know what I'm going to do.
You've got a gun. We don't have any here.
I know. Even the dirty, corrupted alternative media is talking about this. You know, they're trying to placate, minimize it and all that. The truth is, all you have to do is follow a little bit of reporting, and people are reporting all this heavy asset, tanks, armored cars, a hell of a lot more than would be useful to 1,200 men. So this is no exercise. Of course, it may start out that way and then turn into conflict and then a declaration of martial law. That's how they operate. But, you know, once they go this far, you think they're going to pull back?
If they have to, probably, but let me ask you one thing, James. Is it all over America, or is it only a few states for now?
Reports are coming in that it's going on in the Midwest, and there are reports that we're getting that people are already being detained.
Oh.
You have to understand that the way these things are done is not according to what they profess, ever. Supposedly it doesn't start until July, but there's activity related to it in the United States.
Yeah.
And a similar exercise is going on in Canada right now.
Yes.
You know, all you need to do is see them approach your house with a battering ram, and you know goddamn well what's going to happen next. That's an act of war right there.
Yes, of course, but that's still maybe a few weeks ahead. For now, people need to wake up.
You don't know. They're killing people, assassinating people vicariously anyway. They tried to get Rents. They tried to get that Fetzer. Who knows? We know that they surgically assassinate. Now they're being more methodic and broader with the sweep. But the fact of the matter is, it's virtually indicated. Now, they poll everything. If they find that there's going to be an en masse resistance, they'll back down. But the fact is, there won't be an en masse resistance until it starts.
Yes.
Watkins said it's the police that create a revolutionary with their brutality.
Yeah, and they will be the ones to shoot first.
That's right.
And they have to, because otherwise it would be blamed on the people that the police had to retaliate.
I don't think that it's necessary at this point for anybody to get shot at first, to fire. I think if they approach your house with a battering ram, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Because you know what comes next. People that are on the red list know they're on the red list. That means execution. Why do you think they have guillotines in some of these military bases?
Yeah, I think they bought 30,000 of them.
Well, the millions of rounds of 10-millimeter ammo, you know.
I think billion, huh? 1.6 billion plus another something millions recently.
Well, they're not defensive rounds.
No,
they're for
they're execution.
Yeah. So what we have is, now whether or not any of this is particularly actual. The point is, the alternative people like you and me and others that we know are not planting these rumors. No. They're planting these rumors to create fear, to make you think there's no use in fighting back. But that's not the point. When you've seen what happens, when you've seen what a military occupation is, when you've seen that they have these lists, and you know that executive privilege has taken the right to order execution of Americans. When you know all this, you think there's no fire associated with this smoke?
Of course. It is.
I mean, an act of war on an international basis is recognized on a lot less than this. Why shouldn't it be domestically? Once you know that of their intent, once you see them massing the armament against you, and once you see that the borders are closed one way but open another way, what more the fuck do you need? What more the fuck do you need?
Yeah, but we knew it would come to this, didn't we?
Yeah, well, we've been buying time, you know. They wanted to do this before 2000. They planned their riots and their bullshit. It didn't pan out. But you see, they have overstepped themselves on this. It's almost a now or never shitting deal. There's so many things coming out. You know, the economy of the West is about to go down the tubes. They have not kept up the communications network necessary to supply cities with food and water. They have let the infrastructure go to hell. They've done all of these things, you know, and they have turned over administration of the national forest to the United Nations because that would be an area where guerrilla warfare would depend on reconnoitering. All of this stuff, and then they have tried their muscle here and there. And remember one thing, remember what they did to the Branch Davidians. And now people have still not caught up with that.
No, but even less people know about what they would have done to the Osho commune.
Oh, yeah. Well, well, you know, there was a significant reason for what they did to the Branch Davidians. But the fact of the matter remains that they murdered them all. When they tried to escape the fire, snipers shot them. They went in and beat the children to death because the children were secured. They would have been safe from the fire and were safe. They didn't die from smoke inhalation. They died from blunt force trauma to the head, from the gun butts, because those son of a bitches went into the basement where they were and beat them to death.
Yes.
They didn't want any witnesses. They wanted this, and this was an absolute act of terrorism. And people were too stupid to see it because they were sold a bill of goods about, oh, he's raping the children. Bullshit. Bullshit. It was a lie, and it was spun by people that now have been characterized as thugs and liars. The Cult Awareness Network, is now owned by the Scientologists, and the Southern Poverty Legal Center is an FBI front.
Yes.
So, I mean... And this is where all that bullshit came from. The sheriff went out and collected all their weapons a couple of weeks before the raid. They were all legal because Koresh had a dealer's permit, and none of them were automatic, or none of them had silencers, or none of them had fire triggers, and brought them back. And of course, he didn't have the balls to get out there and hold a news conference and tell the people that. He was afraid. Where were the Texas Rangers, twiddling their thumbs? And they would have done the same thing to the people during the siege in the Davis Mountains if I hadn't stepped up and said what I said. You know what I know, and I will spill the beans if you kill people.
Yes, 1999, where we made that video about that.
Yeah. Well, I had the briefing video that I put up. That was theirs. That was the covert black ops that was going to perform the riots in New York City during the Times Square New Year's Eve celebration. I'll never figure out how I got that. Never. Never.
Great.
They'll never figure out how I got that. But you can bet that that group's all dead. They kill them right away.
Oh.
That's the way they do. This, for one thing, is why they're so silent about it now. You know, when I come out, nobody's saying, well, no, Horak's making it up or anything like that. Just people in the alternative media. They're whores in the alternative media. Now, of course, I'm not in the best of moods, but...
We have that Black Ops video you talked about on the blog, but let me ask you something else, James. We here have no idea what really happens after death, and that the spirit can go into a chamber inside the EMVs, the planet-sized craft that we observe in the corona of the sun and elsewhere.
And, you know, there are ETs that are the same way. You know, they know about the EMVs, but just because they can't access them, they're not willing to believe something as profound as this.
Oh, they won't believe that?
Well, you know, more than earthbounds. Some do. Some believe in spiritual technology and enjoin spiritual technology into their entire civilization until they leave the mortal coil with everything intact, including their civilization if they want it, but they never maintain the rudiments of the civilization. They relocate, and I think they relocate into stars. But, you know, what's important to them, of course, when you reach that highest level of awareness, what's important to you and to people is having touch with the spiritual just as closely as you do, to the point where the material becomes obscene. And then it becomes odious. I've seen it. Even the spirits that are in the EBEs, they disassociate from me and from anything that maintains a material existence at all. And, of course, I may kind of verge on both, but I'm still, you know, looked down upon because, I mean, it reminds them of past they'd rather not know about. And that's why we, in a failed experiment, we do the favor. You know, it's like it never existed. The only thing that still exists about the furthest planet in this system is a pile of rubble, and that's being reconstituted into a planet. It has been.
Yep.
And it's ready to be terraformed now.
You said it is ready to be terraformed.
Made alive. The planet made alive, you know.
Which planet?
Well, there is a planet now on the outskirts of this system, not on the outskirts, still within the gravitational system of the sun.
But it's not that one that you talked about that's for the EBEs, the Greys.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's made up to offer them an alternative. You know,
Okay.
because the extended community is with me on this. We want to see Earthbounds get rid of this rotten leadership and erect something committed to not having any more caste system. Whether it is based on wealth or whether it is based on political influence or military, whatever it is, no more.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that what is coming to pass will decide people, this can't go on, and it must not ever raise its ugly head again. All of these vows that you have seen in the past have been made by the monsters as a way of placating the people due to bloody wars and everything. They'll say, oh, this is a war to end all wars. There won't be any more bullshit. The people that are in power, that have been in power all these 300 and some odd years, are war profiteers.
Yes.
They've done everything. I mean, slave traffic, drugs, just the whole thing, whether it's sex slaves now. Once it was labor slaves. Now they make labor slaves out of children in third world nations. They do all kinds of rotten shit. And this is the corporate fascists that long for a return to feudal times where absolute power is manifest.
With the power of life and death over
Yeah.
everyone.
Well, people forget what it was like, but I mean, the Scott people haven't forgotten because they can remember when the institution of noblesse oblige was foisted on them by the English. There are so many excesses that are attached to this kind of thing. Any excess these son of a bitches can think of, they will indulge. No matter how criminal, no matter how insanely inhuman it is, that makes it even more attractive to them. They have taken what existed in France prior to the revolution to a next level. Remember the institutions that feudalism had, like noblesse oblige. What's even worse now, and what interested me in the Game of Thrones, it shows it. They even had an episode where they had the hunting of the maiden.
Mm-hmm.
It shows how brutal and how unconfined the nobility were under feudalism. Of course, it's fiction, but it's realistic fiction in that it portrays exactly what these son of a bitches do whenever they get the power to do them. There is no broaching what they'll do at all. And that's what we have. You cannot expect the graft and corruption in the almost suicidal game that is being played now over the Ukraine. You cannot expect these things to go on without desperation behind them. The elite are desperate. We found them out. TPP is probably the most ruthless and aberrant mechanism that's ever been put on anyone, because what it does, it takes away all the rights that people of a sovereign nation have as citizens, takes away them completely, takes away the sovereignty of the governing body of the nation and subverts it. And then it solidifies the control of all resources in private hands. There's no protection against their excesses, their pollution, whatever they do at all. And in fact, that's what has led to Fukushima. That is what has led to all these problems with these reactors, because they're not willing to do what's necessary to maintain them safely. Not that they ever be safe from being a target for people that want to wage war against you or use that to start a war or whatever. The system itself, the overall system running the world, is too rotten to indulge atomic energy or nuclear energy. It is way too much. And, anybody with a dirty bomb can destroy the livelihood and quality of life of millions of people. Anybody that wants to take a bundle of dynamite into a reactor and explode it can create that on a massive scale. Fukushima is the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
And, what amazes me is that these bastards got away with building these reactors on rivers and seasides.
Everywhere it's like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they got away with that. And, of course, that river is going to become polluted, even if it's running according to their vectors. The ocean, Pacific Ocean, is, for all practical purposes, dead. Anybody eating anything out of the Pacific Ocean after these last 3 years is asking for it.
Yeah.
I get Meals on Wheels, and every time that there's fish in there, I throw it out.
Of course, yeah. It's 4 years already, more than 4 years.
Yeah, well, in the last 3 years, the entire Pacific Ocean has been killed.
Yes.
When you go the furthest extremes of the Pacific Ocean and you find massive wildlife kills, it tells you. It's just a matter, nobody knew for certain how fast it'd circulate, but it'll be in the Atlantic pretty quick, along with the shitheads BP dumping more Corexit than they dumped in the Gulf of Mexico on the Great Barrier Reef. I'll tell you, there are two countries, in both of them, heavily influenced by the empire, by the Queen of England, Australia and Canada. They're just pure dog shit. They're worse than America. They just don't know it. When that bitch queen took those children, those Indian children in Canada, and they disappeared, and they did nothing about it. It's come up. It's come up in the last year, but nothing's been said about it before then to speak of. When she got away with that shit, this is as bad as what happened in the Middle Ages, Shuny, if not worse.
Yeah.
If you throw in nuclear energy, if you throw in modern weaponry and all this shit and the use of depleted uranium universally and shit, it's worse.
It's the apocalypse, what they project to be one.
Yeah, I don't like the mythological euphemisms. I kind of stay away from them, but yes, you're right. You can represent it along the lines of some of these mythological euphemisms, but, they're not precise. And that's what they're following. Like I've always said, they'll follow the book of Revelations because it'll lend them power. The Christians will say, oh, well, we're going to have the rapture and all that and look forward to it, sit on their hands and let it happen to them because they think that it's the will of God. It isn't the will of God or anything that is not debased. It's madness. It's insanity. But they've figured out every angle that they can. They just don't see the end of it. They can't visualize what's going to happen to them, too. They can't do it. They think they can. I'm certain that their implementers have led them down the primrose lane, that they've got bases on Mars or a moon, or they can build hotels in space. And bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah, but when the EBEs will be gone, they will have to believe they are on their own.
Yeah, that was my point. That was our point, and of course, we'll see what happens. But of course, that doesn't mean they won't try. I mean, they're insane. It's like a mad dog. You can have a dog with rabies, and he knows you, and he's been your pet. But once it reaches his spine and brain, you go to pet him, he'll snap you. That's what these people are. They're mad dogs. They're desperate. They've been found out.
Yes, but I guess that they expected as well. They did expect that. I mean, they are the synagogue of Satan in the Bible.
Yeah. Well, what they've done to the earth makes it mute about what they're going to try to take over. I mean, who wants to be the king of a garbage dump?
Yes. Or of an underground base, for that matter, a parallel civilization underground that they think they could have.
No way, my friend.
No, I know.
They've destabilized that too.
Yeah.
There isn't anything that they haven't destroyed as far as security and as far as any kind of backup for their plans. They've destroyed it all. The fracking and nuclear underground detonations, everything for greed, all of it has done one thing. It has catapulted the earth into its own trend. And that trend is the earth will soon be more unstable than it was when you came here, when your ancestors came here. Only there won't be any Druze to help work things out for you.
Yes, on the contrary. If we won't get over the hump, we'll be destroying ourselves or be destroyed from outside forces.
Well, in the foreseeable future, it won't be a favor for anyone to be alive here.
Yes.
Anyone.
When scientists project that due to Fukushima there are only 16 years left for humanity, I've heard that number of 16 years.
That's optimistic.
Yeah, it could be much faster.
Well,
but even that is a time that's within almost everyone's lifespan.
Shuny, that is not taking in consideration what's going to happen when there is no help from the EMVs.
Yes, of course not. No, these people don't know about EMVs.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They don't know about that. They do not know what the cores that have formed this massive mass that are interfering with the stability of the mantle.
Yeah.
They don't where that leads once it is not ameliorated by the EMVs. They don't know how fast it can go. And, of course, the EMVs are not going to be that interested in protecting the Earth either from the sun.
Yes.
So there are two fronts right there they're not taking in consideration because it's beyond their belief, beyond their understanding of astrophysics to realize the danger. And it's like I said on the second show that I did with Kevin Smith, I said, once they start this depopulation in earnest, it'll be over. All the EBEs have to do is stop protecting, farming the energy of the sun, stop protecting the earth, the crust. Man, it can happen very quickly. And they can't believe that. They can't believe that. I mean, when they found that entranceway that's shoring up the San Andreas Fault, do you think they had any idea what it was?
You mean next to Malibu? This UFO base?
Not a UFO base.
Or whatever it is.
It's a structure that shores up the San Andreas Fault.
Ah, all right.
If you go inside, you see how it's done. It's real interesting.
Scientists, did they ever go there?
Oh, they hit it with radar imaging and found a symmetrical structure, the pillars and everything.
Yes.
And I don't know that what you're seeing when you see those images is actual photography. It may be a seismic imaging that you're getting, because after they get a radar image, then they'll hit it with a seismic image and extrapolate between the two. And they'll get a precise image that way. But, yeah, what you see is what is there.
And that's what we have been shown from these images.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what it looks like.
It's even on Google Maps.
Yeah.
And Google Earth.
But they have no idea, and there's no point in even saying anything. I was asked what it was, and I told some people here recently, and they couldn't, it astounded them. But the thing is, whenever I explain these things, it's very simple.
Yeah, and it's not more astounding than all the rest of what you're saying.
No.
Much less, though. I mean, if we assume that ETs are here, they do things here.
Yeah. Doesn't it fit, though? I mean, if you put the things that I say, every one of them is like a piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
Yes.
And I don't contradict myself. I don't come up with something that doesn't fit. Everything fits, like the Black Knights, like all of it, The Phobos, everything pretty well backs it up with what they found out so far, although there are things they won't tell you about. And the Bosegi Mountain find. I mean, this is very particular. I was interested in that they left white gold behind, if they did.
But we don't know if there was white powder gold.
Well, we don't know anything for sure about little particulars, but it kind of amazed me that they would leave that behind, or that the people that found it would even know what the fuck it is. Now, an alchemist would.
We don't have any alchemists here anymore, don't we?
No, don't have any adepts. We may have. I mean, there may be someone who has studied, who has their books on alchemy and may have taken them very seriously, but most of the educated people, so-called educated people, they're too aloof to really put their minds to it, because it takes a discipline, because you are having to relearn so much to understand what helium is and why it can't be held to Earth, but it can be held elsewhere. What's the difference between the Earth and the Moon? If it can be held to the Moon, why can't it be held to Earth? All of these questions, you see, they just ignore because it aggravates their arrogance that they come against a blank wall. They can't penetrate. Their beliefs, their principles, their ways of looking at things, their methodology doesn't work. And they can't stand that.
And they kill everyone from the scientific community who is threatening the status quo.
They minimize them. I mean, they
even kill them.
Oh, they do. They do.
Omega Levy.
Yeah, well, that was interesting. What's interesting about that is I'm the only person to ever talk about Shoemaker Levy and put it in any kind of context. Everybody else, it's just meteor fragments. Oh, yeah, meteor fragments, that represents a comet that exploded, right? And yet everything tracked in like a choo-choo train, hit the same target. Yeah, you fucking idiot. I mean, I was so disgusted with humanity on Earth because they couldn't figure that shit out. I had to be the one. I waited and waited and waited, and finally I started talking about it, and still people are looking at me like I'm an idiot. God, man.
Don't worry, they're looking at all of us as an idiot.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, being thought of as a paranoid idiot by these mongrels, these monsters, is the greatest aplomb I could have. It's the greatest credit I could have. Is the greatest achievement I could obtain because they have dirt in their heads. They have absolute dirt in their heads. Ain't nothing cogitating there. It's like a record going round and around, with a needle stuck.
Yeah.
And it's even worse. And that's one thing why I like literature. Literature deals with personal experience, and it doesn't extrapolate on what you should or shouldn't believe. But it's life itself, and it can lead to many things outside the box. But none of these treatises that are written by scientists or whatever can.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the Bourne series, but in the last part of the Bourne series, the Bourne Legacy, this microbiologist is explaining how viruses can be healed, can be a healing thing, can be good, useful, and everything. She's not explaining pathogenic viruses. She is explaining the concept, how it can override so many processes and accelerate healing and diversity. And, of course, she's explaining this to Bourne, and, man, it's true. It's true. It's absolutely true. And she thought she was doing a good thing, and that was her point in being a scientist working for this group. But they were weaponizing it. They weren't interested in that aspect at all. And Bourne was going to be used in that way as a weapon. And so when they decided to get rid of him because his moral core wouldn't permit it, she helped him. And she helped him escape. And so now she had to escape too. They go out to kill her, and he steps in and kills them. And they're on the run. It's a wonderful story, but I mean, when she's explaining it, I'm going, wow, they figured that out. Son of a bitch. I mean, there's so many things they weaponize that could be glorious for the advancement of humanity. It's not going to be.
Yeah, only if we get over the hump.
Yeah, everything could change. Everything could change. You have to come of the mind that this shit isn't going to happen again. Understand why it's happened and decide once and for all to build safeguards to assure it doesn't. Yeah, and then you go on a kind of probationary period, and then you're a member of the extended community.
1,000 years?
No. Might not even take 100 years. No. Things go fast. Once you're on the right path, things go fast.
Yeah. And the other timeline, Earth, will it appear to our eyes?
I'm not going to tell you about that. You're clever. You and Crystal are so clever.
No, it's not cleverness. Just a question that it's always on my mind.
There's all kinds of things going on. You're too smart to fall for the mythological bullshit. And somebody sent me a thing about the Templars and about what they think is going on with the secret societies based on what's on the back seal on the dollar and all this shit. Here's my reply. It is but an offset to the rebuilding of Solomon's temple yarn, something to offer other than Zionist false legend. But then both are intended to overstep history and the sciences for agenda, an agenda dreamt up long after George III had been put down, which is true. Once that the Crown had the Great Mutiny, they blamed it on us, just like the French blamed the French Revolution on Benjamin Franklin, not on the excesses of the aristocracy or any of their bullshit. It's always somebody else. And so that's what's going on here, And don't feed the fucking myth makers. Don't feed them shit, and that's what people do. So many, the worst, of course, even influenced people like Bill Cooper, who I liked him. I think a lot of him. I have nothing bad to say about Bill Cooper except he let people like Jordan influence him. Get caught up in the myth making. That's what highly superstitious people that need a god, good or bad, and will create it to suit the image they want to project. So what kind of a god is it that you create to suit the image you want to project? It's kind of like masturbating, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an ego, blown up ego out of proportions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just stupid, I mean, we all masturbate, but God damn it, we don't make it a public thing and then go around trying to glorify it. I'm a bitch. And I'm not being obtuse. The whole thing about what's going on in the world, I had hoped that the changes like BRICS and a number of other things would have made a difference to their plans for what they intend to do to the United States. But hell, it's just put it on the fast track. I mean, JADE HELM came out within a month of Putin letting them know, we're not going to step back from BRICS. We're not going to put up with accelerating this conflict to the Crimea that you started in Ukraine, and we're going to do human relief efforts. In fact, just recently there's been a video about how those fascists in Kiev fired on one of these relief
convoys.
Yeah, humane relief. You don't do that. See, that's going to affect world opinion even more. And of course, once people see what's inside these rotten son of a bitches, they're not going to want to have anything to do with it. And this will be on a national scale. They will get rid of people like Merkel. They'll get rid of people like Cameron. They'll pull them down and get rid of them by whatever method it takes. And you see if that'll catch on. If that catches on. Now, the last place on earth it'll catch on is in the United States and in England. But those are two countries that have been deindustrialized, that have nothing but a military industry, and, are beginning to look more and more like a plague to the world than anything else.
Yes.
And I expect to see the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance, I expect to see it start to fail.
The German government has already proposed that the private courts should be replaced by EU courts.
Well, this idea of putting everybody into debt servitude through credit buying, this is the first cog in their wheel that needs to be chunked out. Once it's chunked out, the gears are not going to turn for the rest of it.
Yes.
But, Iceland is a good example, although I hear they used whatever method to get that bullshit back into Iceland, and Iceland is back in the sweat house with the hogs and pigs.
Don't you think they could be threatened as well as a country, as an island on a volcano, to comply to some things at least?
I'm sure if they could, they would be, yes. And so that's probably happened. Yes. More than likely, because the people's resolve to get rid of that banking cartel, it really got going. And of course, that's what's behind all the Ukraine. That's what's behind, because Putin has elected to go for Russia to go on its own, to be independent of this cartel, to get rid of it, to get it all out of Russia. The same way they sent an oil czar in there to take over oil for the big cartels, and Putin put him in prison. So that's war to these son of a bitches. After that, I'm sure that they'd like to assassinate him, but the thing is, Medvedev is a disciple. So, there's no telling how many people see eye to eye in the Kremlin the same way. And assassinating Putin might make it much worse. It would in China. In China, they don't have one-man rule. Mao was a figurehead.
Okay.
And he fucked up. And when he fucked up, they all knew it. When he started that road revolution shit, they indulged him. But they didn't like it. And, of course, it's not going to happen again. In fact, they may have put him down because of it. But Mao had his problems, too. He made himself so popular with the Long March. But, he didn't maintain that popularity because he wanted to be more than a good leader. He wanted to be an iconoclastic tyrant. In fact, far more than Stalin. Stalin wasn't that bad a guy.
Yeah.
Stalin was farsighted. But, I don't care who you are. It takes a very extraordinary person not to have their own head turned by power. That's why you need a council of elders, because they'll all keep each other in line. You choose wisely. You don't pay them to be whatever. They don't have big fancy suits and cars and shit. They do it for the importance of their work. They make a decent living, but they don't get rich.
Yes.
And there's no such thing as anyone getting rich. Why would there be?
We would call it a meritocracy.
Well, yes, as long as you keep it that way. But that's what's important. When somebody gets their head turned, they show a power lust, you retire them. You don't kill them. You just say, well, you have served the cause. We're very appreciative of what you've done, and you'll go down in the history books as a benefactor of a movement to clean things up and to keep them clean. But it's time you retired. Yeah, that's what you do. I mean,
yes, of course.
I don't believe in ruthless violence. Never have. It sickens me. Even when you're forced, it sickens me. But you think you have time to think about that when you're in the 300 defending your society and city from madmen that are driven by a deified leader? I'm talking about the Spartans at Thermopylae Pass. Oh, man, never more beautiful array of men. Never.
They were heroes.
They made those son of a bitches decide they weren't going to go any further. They turned and went back.
If 300 could stop them.
Oh, they killed tens of thousands. That's what you can do if you're determined.
That's really amazing.
At a point, there's no fear.
Yeah.
I've seen things, Shuny, I've seen things that just astound me here. Just astound me. That's why I've done everything that I could to save this place and its people.
Yeah, thank you, James.
And I'll be here to the very end.
I hope me too.
Yeah. We'll see it. I may see it sooner, but I'm prepared. I am prepared. It's difficult when you're being opposed by something as evil not to adopt the methods that they use, but fighting fire with fire, maintaining your humanity. But it's a thing of great sorrow. Even though you're prepared and you know the inevitability of it and everything, it doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about myself.
I know, James. You are eternal anyway.
We all are, Shuny. But then again, you don't know that for sure. All of you earthlings or earthbounds really don't have that knowledge. I mean, you might go along with me and everything, but until you're there, you won't be sure.
Yeah, and you know it for sure. You remember it. That's the difference.
That I have, and no one here has it. And they will say they have it, but I've been to church. I've seen how people can forget the Ten Commandments and they can forget Christ's teaching so easily because of something that's put in their heads that they have no control over. So religion really doesn't commit anybody to anything, really. It's just as phony and fraudulent as can be. Every once in a while you find a minister or a priest that goes beyond that, is a good human being and tries to find a way around the dogma, around the contradictions and everything. And most of them, they don't last very long in the priesthood or as the ministers of any faith because, like a good teacher, they can't follow the fucking syllabus. Because it's bullshit, because it's in contradiction to the higher teachings. And if you go in the Bible, I've said this, and you get a Bible that has everything Christ says in red, whether it's Christ or whoever is attributing it to Christ or what it is or how it comes about or anything, there isn't anything in red that you would argue with.
Yes.
And that's
except for some mistranslations.
Yes, except for those, which are put in there. And, of course, I would darken those out. And there are several, but for the most part...
There's a new translation from Aramaic original. And it corrects a few points.
Well, and so does the Englishman's Bible. What's his name? The only scholarly Bible ever written.
I think that new one might be better even because it's very close to the original Aramaic.
And it is Aramaic. They're trying to vilify Islam at every turn. And actually, Islam is as peaceful and as appreciative of human values as Christianity. But, fundamentalism has raised its ugly head, and too many people identify all Muslims with Muslim fundamentalism, and it's just like that one video that explained when FDR went in and made this deal with the Shah of Iran, not Iran, of Saudi Arabia at the time. The deal that he made was that they would give the United States all their oil, sell it to them, and accept the dollar if they would not interfere with their religion. And, of course, their religion is tyrannical. It's the most fundamentalist, most unforgiving, most dictatorial, without any human values at all. And, of course, that's what's spreading across a lot of the East now. That's what ISIS is touting, although ISIS is not what it pretends by any stretch of the imagination. They're murdering thugs, left over from the mercenaries that were hired on to take Syria and failed.
Yeah, they never attack Israel.
Well, Israel is like the CIA. They're so tied up, they've got their heads so far up, every terrorist organization, and using them, that you can't identify any difference between them and the terrorist organizations. They're all following the same agendas.
Yes.
There's no difference. If you, like me, I lump everyone under the same trends towards humanity when they are being used to follow a common agenda. And so I don't separate a government agency from criminal activities, murderous activities, monstrous activities, when they are feeding them. They're the same.
Yes, of course.
And that's what you have here.
They're delivering cargo to ISIS, British and American planes.
Yes. So you can't tell me that they're not trying to achieve the same agenda. In fact, ISIS may have, just like with Al-Qaeda, ISIS might have been created lock, stock, and barrel by the CIA and Mossad.
Of course.
That's what it looks like to me.
It is.
Of course, there are people that are coming around and saying that. I am so heartened by people today that if we had a little more time, but I think that's why they're on this fast track with starting their martial law and their hostile search and seizure. I think that's why they have, because they see too many people hitting the nitty-gritty, too many people that they can't take out in any other way.
Yes. We'll see if people respond, react, defend.
Yeah, we will. We will. We will see. We're living in times where it's going to go one way or the other, and if it goes the other, it'll be the end.
Dirty deep love.
Nobody gets out of here alive. Well, Shuny, I'll see you later, my young man.
All right, James. Thank
Put
you
it off.
for updating me.
I'm glad we talked.
And have a good night.
Have a good night.